The small business community in the United States has had a very significant need to organize itself, and it hasn't done so in a way that focuses on the federal marketplace or the federal government marketplace. And in that respect, NaFCA is designed to be an organization that advocates for the interests of small business in the federal marketplace.
It is our mission, it is our goal to make sure that the small businesses that are doing business with the federal government indeed not only support successfully the federal government, but also the business themselves succeed in a very competitive environment that the federal marketplace is.
And the United States needs an organization that focuses on ensuring that the collective interests of small businesses, as it relates to the federal marketplace, is looked after.
I'm excited about this. I think it finally has some key industry leaders that are willing to step up and support the effort, propose solutions to Congress and the SBA, and make a difference.
One of the purposes of NaFCA is designed to make it more efficient for small businesses in the United States to share information and to collaborate. The second purpose, and why it's important, is that small businesses have a need to group or coalesce around each other for their common mission and common purpose as it relates to doing business with the federal government. It's obviously a necessary and important platform to ensure that small businesses have a common linkage in which they can present legislation on a federal level as it relates to U.S. Congress.
I think there's a need for a group like the National Federal Contractors Association to focus on policy, important policies.
The federal government, to some extent, doesn't know what to do with it, and it needs your help to do this. It is important that you encourage political leaders and high-level staffers to look for the opportunities to do the right things.
And the third and most important aspect of this is that NaFCA provides a platform in which ultimately action and change can occur.
Instead of setting a side standard, why don't you set parameters based off of what the customer's trying to bid?
Specific legislation can be proposed to members of Congress and also to federal agencies as it relates to the common interests of the small business community across the entire United States.
A trend is the bundling of services into larger and larger vehicles.
The community has committed to get involved on working groups that are going to work as units in order to develop recommendations.
What do you think a reasonable size standard is?
Those working groups are going to develop a reform strategy to present to the government.
And what is the end product? The end product is just to provide the government a total solution, not just a common part of a regulation that they're proposing, but a total solution that is designed by us in the private sector.
A summit and a series of summits and a series of solution workshops really provides multiple opportunities for small businesses across the United States to collaborate with each other and to collaborate with NaFCA in the development of proposed policy or legislative changes that can enhance the share of small business in the national federal marketplace.
If 80% of the United States GDP is generated by small business, why does small business only get 23% of the largest single customer in the economy, which is the U.S. government?
In a couple of months, will show that the federal government did not meet the small business goals, around 22%. So there's room to improve and even go further. And so that's what we're really looking at.
I'm very happy with the event. We had an excellent turnout. As I said, we had a broad perspective of people who were here. I think that we're going to see some real solutions come out over the next 6 weeks of activities.
This type of effort today is consistent. This type of effort is something that needs to continue. And this type of effort is something that I'm sure as it gains more strength and more visibility, will get the recognition of its importance, not only to the administration, but to other small businesses that are out there that are looking for ways to express themselves.
This is not just going to be input from you that's put into some book that goes away and no one ever looks at it. It will be analyzed. Our office will be looking at many of those comments and regulations and trying to push forward appropriate solutions.
There has to be a recognition that the strength in numbers is important, and it's important to the constituencies of both U.S. senators and members of Congress.
Right now, I can tell you we have the confidence that the community is committed to become partners with the government by providing them private sector recommendations.
The small business community can better and more effectively communicate the problems and the issues and the changes that would benefit the community as a whole and not one particular individual group. And you don't have that now. You don't really have proposals coming in.
I made changes to the rule because they made a persuasive case and they were persistent and they knocked on the door every week. And they told me this is going to affect this number of people. You need to listen to us. And I did.
Small businesses are at a relative disadvantage. One of the big disadvantages is that the mega corporations in the United States that focus on serving the federal government, they spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year on lobbying.
No ands, ifs, or buts about it. You're going up against $150 million of lobbying spending by these organizations multiple times over. Over $500 million just by those three companies, close to $500 million spent on lobbying.
These need to be offset by the collective interests of the hundreds of thousands of small businesses in the United States that outnumber them in size as it relates to the quantity, but may not currently outsize them as it relates to the amount of money that they spend on special interest lobbying.
It's an attempt at its best to address a market imperfection. The market imperfection is that certain dominant firms can control contracting opportunities, can create barriers to entry by smaller firms. And that makes for a stagnant sector, less innovation.
That large businesses are very effective at lobbying and accomplishing their goals. The small business community needs to do the same thing.
It's a great time to be doing this.
And in that respect, there's a need for an organization to be able to ethically and properly present the interest of small business to the federal government and to policymakers as well.
We are coming up with our thoughts and ideas and helping our government understand what the challenges are within the small business community, so the small business policies can be made a lot better.
In order to have a greater level of success for the small businesses doing business with the federal government, it is important to eliminate some of the hurdles that are indeed making it difficult in being a good business that creates jobs, that indeed contributes to innovation.
Obviously, the biggest challenge that NaFCA has right before it is the issue of this classification of this, what I call the glass ceiling for small business and doing business with the federal government, which is this glass ceiling is the size standards that exist.
There's a serious imbalance. And so the need for looking at policies like size standards is so important.
And this glass ceiling is suppressing and taking away the oxygen of the small business community as they grow and become viable competitors with these large corporations.
Right now, small business size standards are so complex that no one can figure them out. No one understands how the SBA and the federal government and the Office of Management and Budget figured it out.
Many of which are arbitrary, none of which are supported by statistics or empirical data, but rather supported by just an arbitrary decision to classify a small business under a certain dollar amount.
There needs to be a reform in the size standard policy.
We have an administration, Obama administration has come up here and said that they're looking to do size standards reforms. So let's try to hold them to it. Like they said, that without proposals, they don't feel like they have to do anything.
Make some good suggestions so that we can impact what's going on the size standards.
NaFCA is a platform to make that change happen, and it's also a catalyst to make it happen in a faster manner.
I think it's very important to bring together people to talk about what proposals you might be able to make and talk about the issues and get it on the table and work through.
I think the National Federal Contractors Association is taking an approach that is not just complaining about the conditions, but actually doing something about it, presenting solutions.
Continue to help our government with coming up with new ideas on how to solve the problem. And if more businesses participate in this process and we become much stronger and we become a much bigger voice, then the government will continue to listen, and then things will start improving.
There's a kind of like an energy in the air, and the good thing about it is that this administration seems to really be focused on small businesses as being part of the solution for job creation and economic growth. There's just a very positive climate right now with respect to small business development.
So now it's up to us, it's up to you to take what has been put in place and make it a reality, so that at the end of the day, we can truly say that as small businesses, as minority businesses, we are the economic backbone of this nation.
So I congratulate you on convening a meeting like this and on carrying through on a year-long agenda in this area of straightening out the procurement opportunities for small business at long last.